Hi everyone, Jordan here again. I have another project. I want to kind of demonstrate the basic techniques for how to build something like this. This idea was suggested by my friend Stephanie, and she wanted a way to register school technology carts with Google Forms. And then once you would make a request, it would show up on a Google Calendar, just an easy way to do that. I think with Google Calendars you can make appointment slots. However, the point of this video is more about using the installable triggers and reading, form information back. So that being said, I already have the form built. It's just set up to collect email addresses, room number, date that the card is requested, which class period. You see in this example just 4 periods in a day. And then you have a choice of 3 different carts. And then we also want it to be able to register, maybe if a teacher wants it for all 4 periods in a day, we want that to be possible also. So let's get started. All right, first thing I'm going to do, dive into the script editor and create a project for this. I'm just going to call it cart. What did I call it before? Cart sign up. Okay, cart sign up. Saving project. Sometimes this takes a minute. Working in the cloud isn't always instantaneous, especially when you live in Turkey. So I'm going to declare a function here, and it'll be cart sign up. And the installable trigger for Google Forms takes an event object. So as soon as somebody submits this form, we want this function to run, and it's going to bring an object in here that we're going to collect the responses from. So we're going to call a variable responses, and we're going to say event.response.get item. I believe it's get item responses is the method we want to run it. And you'll notice that the auto completion doesn't work off of these event objects. I really wish that was something that we could get to be fixed, but we won't worry about that right now. We need also another variable up here. We're going to call it calendar ID, and that's going to be a string. And we get that calendar ID. I have just a temp calendar created here, just called School Technology Carts. And you get that by clicking on the little drop down next to it, going into calendar settings, and then grabbing this whole little ID here. So I'm going to copy that and paste that right into here. So you should have some sort of string that looks a little bit like this that we're going to use as a calendar ID. And actually I'm going to change this to all caps. It's going to be kind of a constant variable for us to use. This could change to any other calendar that I own, that I have permissions to edit. And then once we have these responses here, we actually need to loop through them. And I'm going to just do a simple for loop. And as long as I is less than responses.length, because that's going to give us an array. Responses is going to be an array. We want to go through every single one of the responses, and we're going to extract information from them. I'm actually going to log. I'm going to console log so we can see what we're working with here. Responses, I, and I think you get item, and then you can get title. And this is going to log that to the console. But before that ever even works, we need to assign this function, this cart sign up function, to a trigger. And we can go down there to current projects triggers. And we're going to manually create this. It's also possible to programmatically do it, but for this project, We don't need to do all that. So we want the cart sign up function to run from the form on the form submit, and that is perfect. We're going to go ahead and save that. We need these permissions here. You've got to give it permissions to your account, which, since it's your code, should not be any problem at all. Let's actually run this and do a little test version. So I'm going to put my email address in there, room123, and on date, let's say I want to register that for tomorrow, which is the 20th of June. I want it for period A, B, and I'm going to request the Chromebook cart, and I am not a robot. I don't know why it is that it's got that reCAPTCHA on there. I don't think it always does that. But there we go. Submitted the record, and if we go back to our script editor, I should be able to open the log, and I'll see just the titles of the things that it's returning here. So room, date, class period, and cart request, and that just matches up with room, date, class period, and cart request. Everything should be case sensitive. Those are just strings that it's giving you back. But we actually want the data that is being assigned there. And simplest way to do that, I think I'm going to create an array and then push everything to the array. And then take it and assign it to the calendar and push it to the calendar. So what I'll do is above this for loop, I'm going to create cart responses, and I'm going to create an empty array here. Those square brackets are what are telling us it is an empty array. So we actually need to get the responses I, and we want to get the item, and I think it's the method is get response. Maybe it's not get item. Let's try get response. And I'm going to create a variable, call it response here. Oops, sorry, nope. I want to take this array that I have, cart responses, and I'm going to push to that this response. And then at the end of it, I should have 4 responses that I can log to the console. Cart responses. And save that and see what we've got here. We're going to submit another response. 1, 2, 3. Again, I'm going to do the tomorrow, period A, period B, and then I want the Chromebook cart. Submit everything. I hope I don't run out of reCAPTCHAs here. I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. So we'll find out about the way that Google Forms processes those reCAPTCHAs in a minute. So let's look at the response here. So I've got an array. The first value in the array is the room number. Then we've got the date. Then we've got another array with all the answers from the class period. And then we've got the Chromebook cart as our last answer. So we can easily write this into the calendar, and let's go ahead and do that now. Let's get the calendar app going. Whoops, not typing correctly. Calendar app, and we want to, I think it's get calendar by ID. Perfect. And we'll just put in the calendar ID variable that I'd created earlier. I want to get that calendar by ID. And I want to create an event. Create event. And I like these little helpers in there. So title, start time, end time. And got some other ones, some other options in here, and I'm not going to even dive too deeply into that. We're just going to do a title, start time, and an end time. So we need the title, and this is going to be called, we'll do the first thing in our array is going to be room number, and actually let's create these variables separately. So, okay, so we're going to be creating a title, we're going to be creating a start time, and we're going to create an end time. And you'll even see as I create those variables, they're just empty right now, but they even light up. The script editor is good about recognizing the variables that you're using. So the title, I actually want to take the cart responses. I want the very first element in the array. Then I'm going to add to it a little hyphen. And then I'm going to take the, can I still see the, no, I can't still see it. So I'm going to take the second thing, the very first thing is going to be the room number, and then I want to put the date in there. No, I'm going to put the cart request in there, and that's the last element in the array. So we've got 4 elements in the array, so I'm going to take cart responses, and that's going to be index 3. Okay, so the start time and the end time, we actually need to create a date object for when this is going to take place. Okay, I'm going to create a function get date object, and I'm going to put a date in there. And what we're going to do, we're going to say date equals date split. And we want to split this on those hyphens. You can even see in here that the date object that we're getting back from the form is actually year hyphen month hyphen 20. But in JavaScript, date object doesn't look exactly like that. So we actually need to reformat everything to be a little cleaner. So let's create var year equals date 0. Let's do var month equals date 1, and we're going to actually subtract 1 because it's the month is going to be on a 0 index, right? So January will be 0, February will be 2, February will be 1, so on and so forth. And we need one other thing, var day equals date, and that's going to be the second element in our split. Then we're going to take the date, and we're going to do new date, whoops, forgot an equal sign, date equals new date, and we're going to take the year, month, day, and we're going to return the date. So what that's going to do is it's going to create a new date on the date. We can't just feed in the date that is given back to us from the response. And we also need to take into account those class periods, right? So if you choose period A, we want to tell you, we want to say that is 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., so on and so forth. And if we choose multiple, we want to be able to handle that too. So we're going to create another function, get period times, and we're going to take the period into consideration. We're going to pass in the period. Actually, we'll pass in the periods, and we will pass in the day. And this is the function where we're actually going to call, so what we're going to do then, up here, I'm going to delete this start time and end time. And then we need to write these cases. Case, period. What are my options here? So I have period A, period B, period C, and period D. So we need to create a case for every single one of those. Case period A, and then break. Case period B, colon, not a semicolon, and then break. Case period C, and then break. Case period D, and then break. And then we want a default case, and we're just going to break out of the switch statement. If it's not any of these, we'll just break out. It's actually, I think it's redundant. I don't know if the default is required. It's just, I think people like to see that default in there just for lack of confusion. So we actually then want to do, for period A, we're going to take that date object that we have here, the start and the end, and we're going to do start dot set hours, and we'll make that 9. And the end, we'll do set hours, and we'll make it 10. These can be whatever hours you actually use, but we're setting that hour. You can also even set more specific than that down to the minute. But we're just going to be setting the hours for this example. You'll have to play around with it and see what all you can do. So we're going to set hours to 10 and end set hours to 11. That's for period B. For period C, we're going to do starts set hours 11, and then the end set hours to 12, and then period D, start set hours 12 to 1 o'clock. And like I said, you can play around with these methods. The set hours is actually just a method on the date object that we've created here. There's set hours, you can get date strings, there's all kinds of methods that you can use there. And then we're going to pass into the end, we're going to pass that start variable and the end variable. I don't think in AppScript we have the option of using any of the ES6 syntax. That doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. I'm going to just indent this because it helps me to read it. And I should be commenting this a little bit better. I'll go in and put some comments there at the end. So we've got here, get periods, cart response 2, and we're going to just take the first element. 0 would be the first index in that, because remember we get an array of everything that is selected. So then we need to pass everything in there. I think that should get us a working example that we can make work a little bit better here in a second. Let's submit another response. Let's try it. Put in my email, room 123. We want this to come in on the 20th. We'll just pass in period A, and we want to do the Chromebook cart. Tell Google that I'm not a robot, and submit. That has been recorded, and let's take a look at the calendar. I don't see anything yet. All right, sorry, I had to pause for a minute to fix some permission errors. Originally, I had just given permissions to the calendar, so you're going to probably have to go back in and delete your project trigger and re-ask for permissions. Okay, so what it's doing now is it's should be writing everything into your calendar, but we're going to make one small change so that it gets all of the class periods. You'll see here I've hard-coded for it only to take the very first class period, but let's say you choose all 4 of the class periods, you're going to have 4 times to get. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to need another loop. And we've already used the I incrementer here, so I'm going to say j equals 0. J is less than cart responses 2 dot length, and then we're going to increment j, and we're going to actually put all of this inside of this loop. So I want to copy that, put everything into here. Let me go ahead and re-indent so I can read what we're doing here. So I want to do class time get period times, and then I want to get, instead of 0, I'm going to get j. And cart responses, everything else should be working perfectly. And one other thing I'm going to add to the title here, I'm going to put in the string, I'm going to put room, plus cart responses 0 plus hyphen plus cart responses. So let's save that, and we'll see what we can see if that response works for us. So I'm going to put my email address in for the millionth time. We're going to set this in room 1, 2, 3. We want it to be on, let's go to Wednesday this time, the 21st. And I want all day, period. A, B, C, and D. Chromebook cart. Tell Google that I'm not a robot. I don't know if they believe me anymore. Has been recorded. And let's see if that shows up. And there you go, popped up. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and noon. Room 1, 2, 3, the Chromebook cart. And let me see a color there. I wonder if we can change the color. I would say that's left up to the user. If you can figure out how to change the color, I bet that there are some methods in here. Set color. What else do you think we can do? I bet there's a description. I know. Yep, set description. You could do that in here. Change the title, visibility. Oh, there's tons of things. You could even put a location on there if you had something where you were. So that being said, let me know what you think. Is this a useful tool? Hopefully so, or hopefully at least demonstrated a few things like triggers, using the calendar app, form app, and date objects. So comment, share, subscribe, let me know what you think.